Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Preimesberger, editor of eWEEK. Thank you very much for joining us today for our latest session in our IT Thought Leaders interview series called eWEEK eSpeaks. Today, our interviewee is Pankaj Chowdhry, just like it sounds, Pankaj. And he's a former, lab analyst at PC Week when it was the predecessor for eWEEK. So it's the same publication. We actually worked in the same publication different times, but I'm glad to meet you, Pankaj. Thanks for joining us today.
Good deal. It's great to be on. Looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that you're the CEO and are you co-founder or founder of
No, just the founder. Yeah,
founder
just
of FortressIQ security company, about 3 years old. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about your background and then about Fortress.
So I've been doing technology now for a couple of decades actually. And my last company that I'd been at, we were building cloud-based lending technology. And we ended up selling that company to Genpact, which is a global outsourced IT provider. And I was helping run their banking division, and then helped to start and run their AI lab based in Palo Alto. And while I was there, I got the incredible opportunity to work with some great organizations and really engage with them as they tried to really upgrade the entire organization, all their processes for the new kind of digital reality that we're facing. And it's kind of this idea of digital transformation of how do we take almost everything that we do as a global 2000 company, and how is that redefined by the new digital nature of how customers want to engage with us, how they want to experience our product, how they want to learn about them, and then how we deliver those products to them, and then oftentimes changing the entire nature of the product. The As I was seeing that with them, doing something, in a one-off manner, while not easy, was relatively standard. When organizations were trying to do these global transformation projects of how do we redefine how we hire an employee, from whether they're in Kuala Lumpur or Florida, how do we do this? And making sure that we're delivering a great experience, a standardized experience that it's compliant across the world. What I saw was that organizations were always grappling with one really seemingly mundane issue: is they did not understand at the core how they did business today, and that's kind of the central thesis of Fortress IQ. Is you can't improve tomorrow unless you understand today. It goes back to Deming's, right? If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And so the idea of how do they map out their current state so that they can then figure out how to improve those was this challenge that we set out to solve.
Okay. So how would you describe Fortress IQ? It's not necessarily a security company, although it sounds like it. It sounds like it's a little bit more than that.
Yes, it's security and compliance is one part of what we do. The way that we like to kind of position is this idea of, if you think about the birth of the web, Google acquired a company called Urchin that then became Google Analytics, and we can deliver incredible experiences on the web because we can understand how people are interacting with our products at a very, very minute level, right? We can tell, do they respond well to this font size? What's that entire customer journey across, a web property, and optimize shopping carts and figure out really what works. That concept never made it to the enterprise, and it never made it to the enterprise for some very good reasons. On the web, that's a single property problem, right? I install some JavaScript and I track how you do on the web. I've got a great session identifier, these sorts of things. In the enterprise, a transaction, if you think about it, could span multiple systems. Right? If you're filing an expense report, you might send an email. That email has an Excel file. The Excel file then needs to get converted and put into SAP. SAP, there's a report that comes out and does all these different things. So tracking the experience has to be across multiple systems, multiple users, and sometimes even multiple companies. And so how do you actually get a end-to-end view of how you hire an employee all the way from when
Mhm.
they, kind of put in an application to the third-party website till you actually give them their first check and onboard them into an ADP payroll system.
Okay.
Because people didn't have that information, they were operating in silos. It was very disjointed,
Mhm.
and there are very good reasons for that. The idea that there is no single log file for all these different platforms, right? Some of them don't even have log files. How do you track what's going on in Excel?
Mhm.
So we came up with this strategy of, instead of following the data, let's follow the human. Let's try and figure out how humans are dealing with this data across the entire supply chain, if you think about it that way. And because we knew that if we were trying to integrate with each one of these products, right, a global 2000 company has thousands of different, technology platforms,
Mhm.
we'd be playing whack-a-mole if we just tried to integrate with all of them. So we took a computer vision based approach. And what we built was what we called a virtual process analyst.
Mhm.
And it's leveraging kind of, the best in new AI and computer vision AI. But basically what we do is your enterprise IT group will deploy one of our sensors. It's a piece of software though. There's no hardware involved.
Mhm.
And that sensor will tap into your video card, and it in essence records everything going on your screen. So imagine just a recording, and that's all this unstructured data. Then we built computer vision models to actually watch that movie and convert it into a log file of everything that
Oh.
you did.
Mhm.
Then we aggregate those log files across multiple users and use data mining to figure out what are the processes, how are they connected, what's going on.
Okay. So, all right. So you're basically, let me see if this is this too simplistic to say that you basically, Fortress IQ connects dots from silos everywhere into a central log file. And this could this connect an entire ecosystem of a company, like the supply chain and the contractors and your customers and your partners all together?
Absolutely. We had one use case that was a great, kind of 300,000 employee global CPG type company.
Mhm.
And they wanted to figure out what is the process for dealing with customer short pays. So they would, they ship something, they send out a bill for $10,000, and the customer only pays $7,000. Well, why? And
Mhm.
so the idea that they've got to figure out, okay, did we ship them all the stuff that they required? Did the customer get all the stuff in good working condition? Maybe there was some spoilage or something like that, and they said we're not paying for that. But
Mhm.
that process is something that spans multiple companies, right? It could be a shipper that's involved. It could be
Be
the
somebody
actual
with a
supplier.
refrigerator somewhere,
Yeah,
that didn't work.
exactly. And so when we saw this process, we saw that people would have to log in to their actual customer's ERP system and check, did they receive everything? And this was a process that spanned multiple systems. So this idea that they could now finally get an end-to-end view of how this happens, something that was just, kind of unattainable at scale just a couple of years ago.
Mhm. Wow. I'm amazed at how you're able to do that. But I mean, first of all, is it a cloud service only, or can it be also in a server behind a firewall, or what? Is it up to the customer or what?
Well, there's three different components. It is cloud-based, but you've got the sensor that runs kind of on the desktops. But we also have this what we call privacy enhanced gateway, PEG. And one of the things that we saw is that, look, the the privacy and security ramifications of what we do are unparalleled now. The kind of the what you can do with technology today is at a scale that would just quite frankly previously be unthinkable. I can monitor thousands of video streams of what's going on, and so we felt that we had a responsibility to kind of leverage that same technology to help protect employee privacy and customer security and these things. So our gateway sits at the customer site, and we use that same technology to actually dynamically redact all customer information before it gets sent to our cloud-based system.
Oh,
So that kind of this end-to-end system allows customers to take advantage of the best in cloud-based AI technology while still getting that warm security blanket of, kind of on-prem security and compliance.
Okay, so you're redacting, and the deliverable is essentially a log file, or is it more than that?
No, it's a process maps. It could be detailed process logs of what's going on, process metrics. The interesting thing is about how, a loan process is not a loan process. It's an approve process. It's a decline process. It's a request more information process. So, I'd say one of the hardest things we do is not just finding the process, which is hard, but it's actually figuring out that X is not a new process. It's a permutation of an existing process. So
Okay.
you can actually figure out all the different ways that this process occurs.
So it's a completely different view, complete transparent view of an entire system that you can work with in real time. And
Not in real time. Not in real time. There's a
oh, it's
lot of
not real
number
time?
No,
Okay.
it's not real time. Yeah. So
Okay.
the idea that this is a big data problem. If you think about it, what we have to do is aggregate these streams across multiple people. Otherwise, the thing is, humans are very noisy. We don't just process a invoice straight through, right? We could start an SAP, we go to Facebook real quick, or we can go check email. In some instances, like we have advertising clients where Facebook is actually part of the process, right? They're buying ads on Facebook. So we need
Sure.
to document that very well. We have other clients where you need to drop out Facebook. So the idea that we need to aggregate these things and then basically figure out what the anomalies are and remove those so that people don't have to, scan through
Yeah.
thousands of hours of logs to figure out what's going on.
Right. Do you need does a company realistically need a data scientist or someone or a data analyst to use this? Or can this be used by a line of business person?
So there are many different use cases where people are using our stuff, and for the process understanding, process documentation, a line of business person can use it, but we definitely have data scientists that are interested in our data.
Yeah.
When people talk about what we're doing, we are trying to create the system of record for work, right? How is if you think about, we are what we do. Our processes are the DNA of an organization.
Mm-hmm.
So we've now created this new category of data, and we feel that there are just kind of again unimaginable ways that people can leverage it to improve kind of these outcomes. So we're doing some stuff ourselves, but we make the data available to our customers, and their data scientists are using it in some pretty extraordinary ways themselves.
Okay. So let's just review here real quick for a takeaway for our listeners. FortressIQ, as you see it, is really a system of record for work. I like that. That's a headline right there. See, journalists like me like to think in headlines. What can be the pull line that we can take out and it's easy to remember for people. And then you mentioned something earlier in the conversation too that I thought was really good. And you know what? I neglected to write it down, but it was really good. So anyway, anybody who's listening along here, just rewind and go back to the first 5 minutes and you can hear it was pretty good. But listen, Pankaj, thank you so much for the overview. Our time is up right now. Thanks for the overview on FortressIQ. I really think that there's more to be said here. I think that what you're doing is kind of ahead of the curve, to coin a phrase, for companies as they look ahead, as they look at their data now, as they try to make sense of the data now, and not only the data, but also the entire ecosystem that they have so that they can be more efficient with the business. And that's what this does. That's the bottom line of all this, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yep. How can we improve outcomes?
And I think that this may require a second conversation down the line and to go a little deeper into some of the use cases that maybe you do. We didn't do that today. You touched on them a little bit, but I'd like to go a little deeper sometime. So maybe we'll do that. We'll have your people call my people and we'll do it.
No problem. Good deal.
Pankaj Chowdhry, CEO and founder of FortressIQ. Thank you very much for joining us today on eSPEAKS.
Good. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
And for everybody following along, again, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your eWEEK. Thanks for joining us on eWEEK eSpeaks. Go to eWEEK.com to hear more conversations with IT thought leaders.